the impact, but long-term effects that could go on for years.
Death from the heavens can happen, almost as the prophet John describes in the book of Revelation. It is only the beginning of the journey toward the ultimate biblical apocalypse. Believers in the seven signs and scientists both agree a plague that could kill millions may just be a matter of time. The seven signs prophecy describes horrifying disasters. But for those who believe in the end times, God unleashes all his fury, and the worst is on the way. Disease. It's been feared by every civilization since the dawn of man. Even today, humanity is still terrorized by several epidemic diseases. Severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS, struck 29 countries. Since 1972, malaria has killed nearly 100 million people, and an avian flu strain could set off a worldwide pandemic at any moment. The common thread? They could all be linked to one of the seven signs.
And I looked, and beheld a pale horse, and his name was Death.
It's one of the most frightening signs in the entire prophecy.
Throughout the book of Revelation, there are numerous analogies of what I believe are plagues. The first and foremost being the pale horse. I believe that the pale horse represents the release of diseases and plagues on planet Earth.
I see plague as a certainty. It seems like it's just a matter of time before we suffer again.
The forces of hell are being unleashed. You have plagues, you have diseases, you have death of almost every type, to the point that the Bible describes 1/4 of the Earth's population perishing.
A quarter of the world. Well over 1 billion deaths. It's a difficult number to comprehend. Is there really anything out there that can cause humanity to suffer on this scale? Once again, scientists provide the hard data.
Every 10 years, you're going to get a very bad strain of a virus. Every 100 years, you're going to get a catastrophic pandemic virus. We know this. It's not something that's new. All you have to do is look at your history.
History. Our past is a long timeline of plagues and pandemics dating back to the beginnings of recorded time. During the time John of Patmos writes the book of Revelation, around 100 AD, plagues strike in the areas of modern-day Libya, Egypt, and Syria, very near the island of Patmos itself. It's even possible that John has direct knowledge of these outbreaks. But the deadliest plague of them all hits during the Middle Ages, the Black Death. The bubonic plague slashes through Europe in the 1340s, killing between 25 and 50 million people. The disease causes large, painful black swellings called buboes, which give the plague its name. By the year 1400, the death toll reaches 100 million worldwide and reduces the Earth's population from roughly 450 million to as little as 350 million. As might happen today, some victims looked for answers in the Bible and believed the plague to be the punishment of a wrathful God.
The Black Death was invested with spiritual meanings at the time that Europeans were afflicted by this plague. It was the classic form of punishment that God brings down on earth, not only in Revelation, but even in the account of the 10 plagues in Egypt during the Exodus. So the use of plague as evidence of God's displeasure is an old tradition and can be found very prominently in the book of Revelation.
As survivors gain immunity, the Black Death recedes. But fear of the killer bug continues for centuries. The worst pandemic in modern times begins in 1918, just as the most destructive war in human history is ending. Doctors call it the Spanish flu. It's a deadly influenza that sweeps the world and kills an estimated 20 to 100 million people, making the Spanish flu more than twice as deadly as World War I.
It's not really known where it actually started, but what we now think happened is that an avian bird flu virus mutated where it could be transmitted from person to person and just spread throughout the world very rapidly.
An avian virus. If it sounds familiar, it should. Today, scientists are worried about another avian flu strand, a virus called H5. And this time, the danger is even greater.
If that virus mutates and now can actually infect humans and be transmitted from human to human, that's a grand disaster. We're talking 50, 100, 150 million people can die from this.
Just like during the 1918 pandemic, a mutated H5 flu will be easily communicable between humans. But today, we live in a much smaller world. Infection could be out of control before we even realize it's upon us.
We have created the highway for these bugs to go all over the world on a day-to-day basis.
A person gets on a plane who is incubating a pandemic influenza. It has a 2-day incubation period. They arrive somewhere else in the world that doesn't suspect that a pandemic has started, and transmission could be going on for a while before it's detected. And this could be happening in multiple areas of the world.
Just the amount of people coming through LAX, how quickly can one person infect everybody else on that plane, and then all of us around them walk through the gates of LAX, and everybody who comes into contact with us is then exposed. Then I go home and my family and my daily life. Once that happens, we have no immunity. We have nothing.
The symptoms of H5 start off innocuously enough that an infected person might not have any idea of the danger.
The first symptoms of a pandemic virus would probably be similar to regular influenza: fever, cough, muscle aches.
You'd have maybe a runny nose, some teary eyes, a sore throat.
But the symptoms progress rapidly.
Your muscles hurt, your throat is sore, you start coughing, next thing you know you have trouble breathing.
There would be rapid progression, shortness of breath,
cardiac arrest, renal failure.
It's about 4 days from when symptoms develop to when you get in a hospital, and it's about 9 days to when you die.
But as dire as these predictions appear, avian flu may not even be our greatest danger. The most threatening plague may have more sinister origins.
The pale horse, I believe, represents death, but I believe it represents a specific kind of death, and I believe it represents the death that would come from biological warfare, either through an act of terrorism, through a security breach, through military conflict. A vial cracks, a truck crashes, it goes into the food supply. Numerous biologically designed plagues are released on planet Earth. There's no remedy for them. They spread like wildfire. Millions of people are going to die.
What if we had something that couldn't be contained? It would take 1, 2, 3 hosts to infect an entire population? Easily.
As an expert on weapons of mass destruction, John Barton understands the threat today's bioengineered viruses pose.
With the way bioengineering is adapting right now, I think that is our largest threat. Biological weapons systems are only limited by their delivery measure.
It's pretty easy to actually do a bioterrorist attack. Most of these are invisible, they're odorless, they're tasteless, and we don't even know how to respond to bioterrorism. We usually don't have antivirals or treatment ready to go because a lot of times we don't even know what it is. It takes a while until we figure out what it is that we're actually working with the agent.
Let's say you have a terrorist cell. You have an engineered virus. It just has to get airborne. A biological released into the air on another human being in a high-density populated area like Los Angeles, New York. You're going to infect everybody. I mean, you're going to achieve your end. With the amount of travel that Americans do, with the amount of border crossing that the Europeans do, we can easily perpetuate a strain globally within weeks.
For doctors, it will be like getting hit with the tsunami of the sick and dying. Around the world, hospitals will be ground zero.
We don't have the resources currently, or the facilities currently, to handle what might be the influx of sick patients into hospitals, ERs, communities.
Every ER is full. Every hospital bed is full.
Every nurse's max